Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So we just wanted to clarify some things, and again, encourage everybody to subscribe to all three channels. Each one does have unique videos on what we've received about the alien invasion scenario. So you may or may not be aware of Reagan's famous 1987 UN speech on alien threat that certainly resonates now. Now, this article is from 2015, and it says it resonates now. How about today?
Yeah, right.
I mean, how about today with everything going on in the skies of Alaska, Montana, China? Flashback. Reagan's vision for unifying against an alien invasion, right? Now, what you got to realize, and this is the actual speech here.
These hopes. As the Secretary General noted some time ago, the risk of anarchy in the world has increased because the fundamental rules of the UN Charter have been violated. The General Assembly has repeatedly acknowledged this with regard to the occupation of Afghanistan. The Charter has a concrete practical meaning today because it touches on all the dimensions of human aspiration that I mentioned earlier. The yearning for democracy and freedom, for global peace, and for prosperity. This is why we must protect the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from being debased as it was through the infamous Zionism is Racism resolution. We cannot permit attempts to control the media and promote censorship under the ruse of a so-called New World information order. We must work against efforts to introduce contentious and non-relevant issues into the work of the specialized and technical agencies, where we seek progress on urgent problems for terrorism, from terrorism to drug trafficking to nuclear proliferation, which threaten us all. Such efforts corrupt the Charter and weaken this organization. There have been important administrative and budget reforms. They have helped. The United States is committed to restoring its contribution as reforms progress. But there is still much to do. The United Nations was built on great dreams and great ideals. Sometimes it has strayed. It is time for it to come home. It was Dag Hammarskjöld who said, "The end of all political effort must be the well-being of the individual in a life of safety and freedom." Well, should this not be our credo in the years ahead? I have spoken today of a vision and the obstacles to its realization. More than a century ago, a young Frenchman, Alexis de Tocqueville, visited America. After that visit, he predicted that the two great powers of the future world would be, on one hand, the United States, which would be built, as he said, by the plowshare, and on the other, Russia, which would go forward again, as he said, by the sword. It needed be so. Cannot swords be turned to plowshares? Can we?
You know, when you've listened so far, it's so interesting to look back at this, because I could see where people would take little blurbs from this and could utilize it to, build their argument depending on where their mindset is coming from. So you may have some on the right that are saying he's warning us about the NWO. And yet, what's he doing? He's pushing the UN. Ultimately, the UN, the WHO, the CDC, all these, obviously a WEF, now many people are aware of that in these days, all these things are agents of that greater purpose. Sometimes it serves a purpose to point out some things that maybe you're even doing in the light that you are, again, shedding light on a darkness to expose it. But what you're really doing is still advancing an objective. And so what's he doing? He's calling on strengthening the UN. And it's interesting that he means, Russia here, and he's saying Russia instead of the Soviet Union. Again, here we are again with the Soviet Union apparently gone, Russia here. And, again, what really is the agenda that's here? What are you hearing so far?
Well, this part of everything is very confusing for me, and I rely on you heavily, as a lot of people do, to give us that understanding that we all need, because these politicians, they speak from a certain script, but you have the ability to take this information, read between the lines, and give this information out to people. What I'm still picking up, and what I have been picking up, is I'm looking at the alien part of things, looking down. So it makes it unique that you and I are together, because I see from that alien aspect and you see from the ground, and it helps paint people a clearer picture of what's going on.
And here he is again. He's pointing out Russia and the quotes of this one other person, the U.S. the plowshare and Russia the sword. The reality is the U.S. has invaded far more nations than Russia. It's actually the inverse. U.S. has been used as the military force from of the power structure, and has in actuality been at war for 90 something. I think it's 97% of the time that it's existed. There has been an ongoing war. And here he's talking about Afghanistan. What's the irony? Well, Russia ends up leaving Afghanistan. We go in. And this again, is part of the irony. And we have to realize again, the system is a system that's set up to constantly give us more of the same, with a new face, a new voice, a new angle, but still always more of the same.
We and all nations not live in peace. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war?
And that's where it's just so hilarious, because again, he's given us a truth, and when I listen to that, I know he practiced that so many times, and he was a great speech giver, on like 46 and so many others. I mean, Obama could give a great speech. Some of these people, they're better actors than others. That alien threat, and yet is not an alien force among us. Oh yeah, it's here right now. It's always been here. And again, here he is at Bohemian Grove. That's the insider's insider get together where they have a good old time. Yeah, they have a good old time along with Nixon. Again, Buckley. There's so many people that have been here that you can see. Kissinger and George Shultz, of course, Gerald Ford. This again is an insiders club. Just like the Illuminati, just like over at Yale, the Skull and Bones, they get together, masters of the universe. And here he is with Nixon and Ford and so many others. And then again, Werner von Braun. Now Cindy's been able to connect to Werner von Braun, as this is the thing in the future when we get out of this system. If you want to ask Nostradamus, you want to ask Werner von Braun, you want to ask anybody in history a question, you'll be able to. Because again, we are all part of the same ocean of consciousness. You will be able to connect. It's just a matter of frequency. Was he really a Nazi? Absolutely. He was part of the Third Reich. Some believe he was part of the Fourth Reich. That is literally manifesting in front of us right now. Part of Operation Paperclip, taken into this country and then ends up leading NASA. Oh, yeah. You could just read into his history. Werner von Braun, German-American rocket engineer. Now, German-American, he was fighting, he was part of the Nazi machine. Oh, yeah, but he spoke up in 1944, and he risked imprisonment Because, again, you got to realize all these things are part of a script. They're all part of the script. So fascinating that what he was saying to Cindy was he found that he was a little surprised that so many of the people were paying attention and believing the script.
Right. I mean, that's the part that I got access to, was that time and space when he was on the deathbed making these statements. He had no problem making them, but honestly, he really didn't think that it would go to this extreme. He didn't think that that many people would believe him. But yeah, I mean, everybody, we're going to all be able to do this type of energy reading, be able to travel through the ether and get that vibration and translate it. We're all headed there. And the most important thing the controllers want to do is stop that, because could you imagine if we all just had answers, boom, right now? We can evolve ourselves to that point, which is very frightening to them. But I thought it was very curious, the answer that I had received, that he just didn't think so many would believe him. I don't know what you guys take from that.
Well, as you see here, German-American, quote-unquote, rocket engineer, space visionary, he is often depicted in white or black, saint or devil terms. In the eyes of his associates and hero worshippers, he's still seen as an apolitical space enthusiast who was not a real Nazi and had nothing to do with the crimes of the Third Reich. Indeed, he was arrested by the Gestapo and held for 2 weeks in 1944. Just 2 weeks. Many critics and many survivors of the Mittelbau-Dora concentration camp, on the other hand, see him as an unprincipled opportunist, or even a convicted Nazi who was directly responsible for the deaths of 20,000 people. Is that the person you want to put your faith and belief in? Again, his false flag alien invasion statement, interesting, is it not? From 74 to 77, he began privately telling Carol Rosen, a colleague at major aerospace company Fairchild Industries, about a sequence of contrived global false flag cards, such as asteroid impacts and extraterrestrial invasion, which would lead to the militarization of space and usher in a new world order. The reality is space is already militarized. And the reality is that the alien invasion has happened thousands of years ago. In fact, we are in an occupied territory by a foreign invader. And this has been the way it is for your entire life and the entire life of your parents and grandparents. So now, more than 40 years later, the sequence predicted by von Braun appears to be on the verge of playing out, as mainstream media increasingly speculate about asteroid strikes and alien invasion, what many believe are cases of predictive programming. And again, it doesn't mean that a lot of things are not going to happen. You know, you could read into his biography, and yeah, absolutely. He went from being, a top-level scientist for the Nazis to a top-level scientist at NASA. Again, would you say he's an opportunist? Well, he obviously was successful and able to navigate. When you look into Project Bluebeam, you don't really find too much. There is some stuff out there, but in reality, what's the reality of Project Bluebeam? Well, it was first kind of given to us by Serge Monast. He talked about Project Bluebeam, as it says it could be part of the craziest conspiracy theory. Well, he was a writer and investigative journalist from Quebec, and so he gave us what he said was part of the NWO and their ultimate goal of creating a New Age religion. So again, this is divide and conquer. So who is Project Bluebeam really intended for? Well, it's interesting, really to go into it, because when you hear it's quoted most often by people that are fundamentalist in mindset, although you will find others out there that will utilize this term as well. And this is my first exposure to a lot of things were oh, it's a new age religion cult, and et cetera, et cetera. And as you look in deeper, you realize that the cult is mainstream religion. Because again, mainstream religion's given to us by the power structure. And again, obviously, the two biggest religions in the world are from the Abrahamic tradition. Again, Christianity, modern Christianity, which may have almost nothing to do with the original Christianity. As we were going to do another video talking about the persecution of the Gnostics, it would be just kind of obvious if you want to come to the realization that this planet has been under the control of Satan, the adversary to humanity. Shouldn't it be just blatantly obvious that the main belief systems would be Satan's systems? And that you should go, if you want to look and say, well, what was the real Christianity like? What was the original Christianity? Look to what was persecuted and wiped out in the past. And that would be Gnosticism and others like it, like the beliefs of the Essenes, as well. So, certainly not what you get in the mainstream, because the mainstream is the control system. To me, it's perplexing how deep that is, but it's a fear-based thing. And it is fear-based because you're taught you're going to burn in hell, no salvation for you. And again, the disconcerting part of it is that there are so many people looking forward to the pain and suffering of others because they don't have the belief system that, these one group thinks that they have the right belief system and everybody else is going to be suffering punishment, but we're going to be okay. Again, so much for unity consciousness there. I mean, that's really pretty sad, honestly. So Project Bluebeam is so exposed, to bring about like the Maitreya. You had Benjamin Krem speaking of the Maitreya. You know that Islam is set up to wait for their Imam Mahdi that's going to come and unify Islam. And according to their prophecies, going to impose Islamic rule on all the world. And yet they do also believe in Jesus per se. They look at him as another prophet. And again, you have the Christians waiting for Jesus to come in the second coming. And we also have those that have said they're going to use Project Bluebeam to shine a holographic image of Jesus in the sky. And then it's going to morph into Buddha. Then it's going to morph into Krishna. Then it's going to morph into the Maitreya and the Imam Mahdi. Again, all these guesses. The reality is the alien invasion happened thousands of years ago, and we can see depictions of it. As you see human slaves lined up, strung together at the neck, were these giant beings, those that came from the sky, the Anunnaki, serving under the Draco. They are under the Draco power structure, which ultimately the Draco are under the power structure of an artificial intelligence that can most accurately be described as kind of a black dragon, per se, interestingly enough. The alien invasion happened a long time ago. There's depictions of it right there. In fact, the power structure of the planet is still under their control. This is who the politicians serve. The WHO, the CDC, the UN, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers, the Skull and Bones, the Illuminati, they all serve the Anunnaki draconian power structure. Through the GG are beings that are the same density as us and can kind of be their middlemen, per se. And again, the bloodlines of the hybrids are basically the ones that are our top-level politicians. So the alien invasion happened. The benevolent aliens aren't going to invade us. No, of course not. They're trying to liberate us, and they're trying to liberate our minds first and foremost.
We went over a lot of that over on EE Arts a little bit ago. For deeper understanding, but we are in a situation where we are being asked to be our best self and really look at the things that we're doing, look at our own behavior, and how can we simply be a better person today than we were yesterday. And in all reality, it's truly that simple. We have to examine ourselves to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you want to step in to your own highest authentic version of yourself? There is never a one size fits all. This universe is about exploring things from every possible different angle and perspective. Whenever you get this one size fits all mentality that you have to jump into one of their boxes, that's not coming from the creator. No, not at all. That's coming from the opposite. This is coming from those that have already enslaved humanity. The thing is, again, humanity doesn't really understand that it's fully enslaved. The monetary system is enslavement. Cindy's been saying to me every day lately, we are the only species on the planet that has to pay to live. There's something wrong with that. That's not how it is. You don't have to pay to live in other societies. You work on energy exchanges of an equal value if you're going to, desire to trade something, whether it is an object, a skill, anything like that. Equal energy exchange, yes. But not enslavement. You don't have to pay to be. You don't have to pay to be on any planet. This, as far as the higher densities. No, this is the slave mentality, the slave-master relationship. And there's stories of these beings all over the planet. Every single corner of the earth, there are legends, stories, myths that are based on truths. The alien invasion happened a long time ago. The benevolent ones aren't going to invade us. No, not at all. They would never dream of interfering on that level. They would never impose their will on us. They understand the value of being able to make your own decisions and go on your own evolutionary path. And that doesn't mean Darwinian evolution for those that don't even understand that there is other types of evolution than Darwinian. Darwin is another 33rd degree Mason that is part of their control system. They give us truths all the time, and they distort them. This is what they do. So, for people that will either go down that evolutionary path and think there can only be Darwinian evolution, or they'll discard it and say, I don't believe in evolution at all. Well, evolution is a law of this universe, but not the way Darwin explained it. No, this is exactly what they do. So will there be holographs up there, depicting things that aren't really there? Oh, sure, they'll do that. They'll do anything to maintain their control. Now, does it mean that those craft that they're talking about, that the U.S. shot down, are not extraterrestrial? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're, their own craft, per se. I wouldn't put it past them for shooting down their own craft. But as we shared, these are the blue avians that are showing themselves right now. As again, there are many, many beings around us all the time. And again, use discernment. Develop your own discernment. We are just here to be a channel to open up the minds of those that can be opened. If your mind's closed, then we're not for you. And that's fine. Again, everybody is going down their own path. But we just wanted to share this. So, yeah, could there be, and could they still, put out that scare? Absolutely. This doesn't mean that they're not going to say there's an alien invasion, but the alien invasion already happened. We're under the control of those ones. It's our freedom that's directly ahead for those that will not go along with the system, for those that will not blindly trust. And we have many that have said, I would never do what others have done, what maybe 60 to 70% of the world has done in response to the plague upon the land. And yet they blindly go along with the belief set that has been given to them without even questioning it. So again, they have every angle covered they do serve an artificial intelligence that's out of this world and hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than anything that we do have. Yet that's nothing compared to the higher you, because the higher self resides on a much higher plane than this. This is an aspect of us that's having this experience on this density. So again, that which is inside you is greater than that which is inside the adversary.
A lot greater. And I do fully expect for the waters to get quite muddied at this point. They are going to do everything they can to confuse, to bring doubt, but we really have to anchor ourselves now, find our path, and walk down it. That's what we need to do now.
Absolutely. So, could there be will they tell us there's an alien invasion? It's part of their playbook. They've planted the seeds a long time ago. Reagan's speech in 87 was planting those seeds. Werner von Braun was part of planting those seeds. So absolutely, it could be part of the plan. That doesn't mean there's no extraterrestrials, though. So this is, again, where people they go too far and they understand that. They understand there's going to be CONS piracy theorists that believe, well, if they want us to think there's an extraterrestrial invasion, then there can't be extraterrestrials. Well, it's the extraterrestrials that are giving you this whole plan in the first place. Yeah, there's always been an extraterrestrial presence on Earth. Always. There's never been a time when there hasn't been since Earth's been created. Virtually as soon as the Earth was able to hold life, there's been extraterrestrial presence on the planet.
Indeed.
So I hope this clarifies, or maybe it makes it even murkier. But, basically, again, and I fully expect them to show wreckage and say, this is what we shot down, and it's going to look pretty pathetic. Oh, yeah. Well, again, or it, they might give you some things that are going to make you say, wow, cool. But again, you can't trust anything that comes from the mainstream media, the mainstream religious thought, the mainstream political thought. It's all part of the control grid.
No, don't forget the medical system.
Absolutely. That might be the biggest of them all. Right. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.